Takes 10-day remand of Manish Sisodia. Delhi court directs Manish Sisodia to be produced at 2 p.m. today. DD had moved a plea for issuing production warrants for Manish Sisodia after his production. His custody will be taken formally from the court. Now, he was arrested by the ED just a day before. Remember his bail plea hearing. Going across to my colleague Ananya. Ananya, the arrest, detention and bail provisions under the PMLA are very different because the CBI operates under the CRPC, so it looks like more trouble for Sisodia.
Well, definitely, Shilpa, it is more troublesome for Manish Sisodia when the ED has now arrested him, because remember that the rigors under the CRPC are much lesser, while the rigors under, in fact, the PMLA for arresting a particular accused is much higher. In CRPC, a particular person can be arrested for mere suspicion. However, in ED or in PMLA, there has to be a reason to believe that this particular person is guilty of that particular offence, and there has to be certain kind of material available. And in fact, the grounds of arrest also have to be supplied to the accused person. But at the same point of time, first the updates on this particular story. Number one, that the ED will produce Manish Sisodia at 2 p.m. before Special CBI Judge M.K. Nagpal. He will be brought in from the Tihar jail to the court, and where ED would be seeking his custodial remand and would also be taking his formal custody from the court of law. Secondly, 10 days of police custody remand has been sought by the Enforcement Directorate. The ED has sought for 10 days of remand, though the grounds for these remand, the reasons why the ED want to quiz him for 10 days is something that we'll get to know at 2 p.m. Another very important update is that, Manish Sisodia has been conveyed the ground of arrest. He was arrested at around 6 p.m. is what has been told by the Enforcement Directorate to the court. Now, coming back to why it can be more troublesome for Manish Sisodia at this point of time is, number one, I told you already that the rigors to arrest somebody under the PMLA is much higher, and if at all such an arrest has been made, certain kind of material would have been with the Enforcement Directorate to make certain kind of this arrest. Secondly, even if Manish Sisodia secures a bail in the CBI case, that won't matter because he will have to serve more days at the ED or at the judicial custody in the PMLA matter as well. Thirdly, a very, very important and key aspect, while the Supreme Court had upheld the twin conditions of bail under Section 45 of the PMLA, which basically says that a person who is accused of offences under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act can only be granted a bail after he satisfies the court that he will not commit that particular offence in the later stage, and he is not a part and privy to this particular offence, and his guilt is not made out. These are the two important grounds that have to be satisfied before securing a bail, and in a case relating to the PMLA, this was upheld by the Supreme Court in its Vijay Madan Lal Chaudhary judgment, which came in July last year. So definitely it is a troubling road for Manish Sisodia at this point of time, and similarly for the Aam Aadmi Party as well, because remember that he was somebody who was a key player at the Aam Aadmi Party, and exactly the charge against Manish Sisodia is that he had played a key role in formulation, execution of this particular excise policy, wherein 6% of margins were raised to 12%, and the 6% was going in to the public servants and various leaders as, in fact, kickbacks, and that's the exact charge of the Enforcement Directorate. The Enforcement Directorate is looking into the money trails, the money laundering aspect of it, while the Central Bureau of Investigation is looking into...
Thank you for bringing that to our notice, that just the triple test for bail is not going to be applied here. It's going to be much more difficult. Going across to my colleague Anshul as well, who's been tracking this very closely. Anshul, after Satyendra Jain and Vijay Nair, now looks like Manish Sisodia will be in it for the long haul, because our colleague Ananya was just explaining those legal provisions and they seem very strict.
Well, definitely, if you see, since now the ED has already registered a case and they have gone ahead and arrested Manish Sisodia, his troubles are going to increase from today. As Ananya reported that Manish Sisodia will be presented in front of the Rouse Avenue Court at approximately 2 p.m. So that is the time we are expecting that at approximately 1 p.m. Manish Sisodia will leave from the Tihar jail where he is currently lodged. Now, if you see the entire procedure that needs to be undertaken before Manish Sisodia's arrest is Manish Sisodia is taken into custody by the Enforcement Directorate, that is a long process, and that is the reason why there are so many procedures that are already in place. Since Manish Sisodia is in judicial custody at this point in time, the ED has already moved an application to seek his custody in front of the court, and the court has given a time for that hearing to happen at 2 p.m. So yes, it remains to be seen what happens in that hearing that will happen in front of the Rouse Avenue Court. But yes, as of now, as Ananya has been pointing out, that yes, the troubles for Manish Sisodia will be mounting from today onwards, and it is very, very unlikely, if at all the judgment is in favor of the ED, then it is very, very unlikely that Aam Aadmi Party or Manish Sisodia is going to get any sort of relief from the court over the coming few months, because yes, the PMLA sections, once imposed through the Enforcement Directorate, definitely make the case really very strong. And also the kind of charge sheet that ED has already prepared in this entire matter. In fact, the charge sheet that has been presented in front of the court as well, that also clearly states how Manish Sisodia was actually involved in forming this entire policy. Not only the forming of this policy, but also the manner in which this policy was implemented and the liquor licenses that were given to the so-called South lobby. So yes, it remains to be seen what comes out from that hearing that is going to take place in the Rouse Avenue Court at 2 p.m. But yes, definitely tough times ahead for the Aam Aadmi Party, and especially former Deputy CM of Delhi, Manish Sisodia as well.
Absolutely. Anshul, do stay with us. We also want to get in a word from CNN News 18.